Life, in its ever-unfolding mystery, has never been about reaching a final destination, nor about attaining some ultimate state of control. And yet, most people spend their entire existence trying to grasp at certainty, clinging to the illusion that if they can just solve all their problems, if they can eliminate all their struggles, then they will finally be free. But the truth is, freedom does not come from control, and peace is not found in the absence of challenge. Rather, peace arises when you cease your resistance to what is. The mind, conditioned by years of societal expectations, tells you that difficulty is something to be feared, something to be avoided at all costs. But consider this. Have you ever truly grown in moments of complete ease? Have you ever discovered the depths of your being when life was perfectly predictable? Growth does not happen in the absence of challenge. It happens precisely because of it. If you observe the natural world, you will see that nothing in existence struggles the way humans do. The trees do not resist the wind, they bend and sway, moving with it, dancing in harmony with the forces of life. The rivers do not fight against the rocks, they flow around them, carving new paths with patience and persistence. Yet humans, in their desperate attempt to control every aspect of life, have forgotten this simple wisdom. They wage war against discomfort, against uncertainty, against any experience that does not align with their expectations. And in doing so, they create suffering where there need not be any. It is not the challenges themselves that cause pain, but our resistance to them. The moment you stop fighting, the moment you allow life to be what it is, you discover something extraordinary. There was never anything to fear in the first place. Imagine a person caught in a river, thrashing against the current, exhausting themselves in a futile effort to swim upstream. This is how most people live, constantly resisting the natural flow of existence, believing that if they just struggle hard enough, they can force life to go their way. But what happens when they finally surrender? When they allow the current to carry them? They realize that the river was never against them. It was simply moving according to its own rhythm. The same is true of life. When you release your grip, when you let go of the need to control every outcome, you are not giving up. You are aligning yourself with the deeper intelligence of existence. And in that alignment, struggle dissolves, replaced by a profound sense of ease, of effortlessness. But we have been conditioned to believe that effort is the key to success, that struggle is a necessary component of achievement. We are told from a young age that we must fight for what we want, that life is a battle to be won. Yet, paradoxically, the greatest achievements often arise not from force, but from flow. Think of the artist lost in their creation, the musician who plays as if the music is flowing through them, the athlete who enters a state of complete absorption. These moments of pure presence, of total immersion, do not come from struggle, they come from surrender. And the same principle applies to every aspect of life. The more you resist, the more tension you create. But the moment you let go, the moment you trust the unfolding of things, life begins to move through you effortlessly. Most people believe that their happiness depends on external circumstances, that they must arrange their lives in a certain way in order to feel at peace. They think, if only I had more money, if only I had the right partner, if only I achieved this goal, then I would finally be happy. But happiness does not exist in the future. It is not something to be attained, it is something to be realized. And that realization happens the moment you stop searching, the moment you recognize that nothing outside of you can ever bring lasting fulfillment. The mind is always projecting forward, always chasing the next thing, always seeking some imagined state of perfection. But life is not happening in the future, it is happening now. And if you are not present for it, if you are too busy trying to force things to go your way, you will miss the very beauty of existence itself. The key then is not to fight against life's challenges, but to see them for what they truly are, opportunities for growth, invitations to expand beyond the limitations of your own mind. Every difficulty you encounter, every moment of discomfort is not a punishment, but a lesson. It is life asking you to let go of your attachments, to release your need for certainty, to trust in the unfolding of the unknown. The mind wants to categorize everything into good and bad, success and failure, pleasure and pain. But what if there was no such distinction? What if every experience, no matter how challenging, was simply part of the great dance of existence? When you begin to see life in this way, nothing can shake you. You no longer fear change, because you understand that change is the very nature of reality. Consider the waves of the ocean. They rise and fall, crest and break, endlessly moving in an intricate rhythm. If you try to resist them, if you fight against their movement, you will be tossed about, overwhelmed by their power. But if you learn to move with them, if you allow yourself to ride the waves rather than resist them, you discover a sense of harmony, of effortless flow. Life is no different. It is not something to be controlled, it is something to be danced with. And the more you trust in this dance, the more you relax into the present moment, the more you begin to see that every challenge, every obstacle, is simply another step in the unfolding of your own evolution. But this is not something the mind can easily grasp, because the mind craves certainty, structure, predictability. It wants to know what will happen next. It wants to plan every detail. It wants to feel in control. And yet, life has never followed a script. It has never unfolded according to human expectation. The greatest moments, the most profound realizations, the deepest joys, they all arise when you least expect them, when you are not trying to force them into existence. And so the paradox is this: the more you try to control life, the more chaotic it seems. But the moment you let go, the moment you surrender to what is, everything begins to fall into place, effortlessly. This does not mean passivity, nor does it mean resignation. To surrender is not to give up. It is to step fully into the present moment with complete awareness, with a deep trust in the intelligence of life itself. It is to recognize that you are not separate from this great unfolding, that you are not some isolated being trying to impose your will upon the universe. You are the universe. You are the river, the ocean, the wave. And the more you align yourself with this truth, the more you move in harmony with existence, the more you begin to see that there was never anything to fear, never anything to resist. Life is not happening to you, it is happening through you. And when you realize this, when you truly understand that every challenge is not an obstacle but an opportunity, you step into a state of freedom beyond anything the mind could ever comprehend. The mind, ever restless, always seeks to categorize experience, to place everything into neat little boxes labeled good or bad, success or failure. But life does not work this way. The universe does not operate according to the rigid structures of human thought. It moves in waves, in cycles, in unpredictable rhythms that refuse to be confined by our expectation. And yet we insist on measuring everything against an imaginary standard, believing that if we can just eliminate all the so-called bad experiences, then we will finally find happiness. But this is an illusion, a mirage, that keeps us running in circles, always chasing, never arriving. Think for a moment about the changing of the seasons. The trees do not weep when winter arrives, nor do they celebrate when spring returns. They simply exist, fully present in each moment, accepting the natural ebb and flow of life. And yet human beings resist this simple wisdom. We want perpetual summer, endless ease, an existence free of challenge, but in doing so we deny ourselves the richness of the full experience of life. Without winter, would we truly appreciate the warmth of spring? Without struggle, would we ever understand the depth of our own resilience? The challenges we face are not punishments, they are invitations. Opportunities to see beyond the limitations of our own thinking, to expand into something greater than we imagined ourselves to be. But the mind does not like uncertainty. It clings to the familiar, to the known, even when it causes suffering. It would rather stay in a painful situation that is predictable than venture into the unknown where anything is possible. And so we trap ourselves in our own thoughts, replaying old stories, reinforcing old fears, convincing ourselves that we are powerless, that we are victims of circumstances beyond our control. But what if we are not victims at all? What if the very things we fear, the gateways to our greatest transformations? What if the unknown is not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced? Consider a person learning to swim. At first they thrash about, struggling against the water, terrified of sinking. But the more they fight, the more they exhaust themselves. And then at some point they realize that the water is not the enemy, that if they relax, if they trust, they will float. This is how life works. The more you resist, the harder it becomes. But the moment you surrender, the moment you stop trying to force everything into a rigid framework, you discover that life carries you, effortlessly. You were never drowning. You were only fighting against the natural flow of existence. But society does not teach us to trust the flow. It teaches us to fear uncertainty, to seek security at all costs. We are told that if we do not have a plan, if we do not control every detail, then we will fail. But what is failure? Is it not simply another label, another story created by the mind? A tree does not consider itself a failure when a storm bends its branches. It does not shrink away in shame when the wind strips it of its leaves. It simply adapts, moves with the forces of nature, and in doing so it grows stronger. The same is true for us. The events of life are not here to destroy us. They are here to shape us, to refine us, to help us discover who we truly are beyond the illusions of the mind. The question then is not how to avoid challenge, but how to meet it with the right perspective. If you believe that struggle is suffering, then you will resist it. But if you see struggle as transformation, then you will embrace it. You will step into the unknown willingly, with curiosity rather than fear, because fear only exists in resistance. It is not the unknown itself that frightens us. It is our refusal to let go of the familiar, our attachment to what we think should be. But the most beautiful moments in life, the moments that change us, do not happen when everything goes according to plan. They happen when we surrender, when we trust, when we allow life to unfold in its own way. Think of the artist who creates without expectation, allowing the painting to emerge naturally, without forcing it into a preconceived form. This is how life works. The more you try to control it, the more rigid and lifeless it becomes. But the moment you let go, the moment you allow yourself to move with the rhythm of existence, everything becomes effortless. And this is not about passivity. It is about alignment. It is about understanding that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. That every challenge, every uncertainty is not an obstacle, but an opening, a doorway to something greater than the mind can comprehend. Most people spend their lives waiting for the right moment, the right circumstances, the right conditions to finally start living. But the right moment never comes, because life does not operate on human timelines. It moves in its own way, in its own time, and the only way to truly experience it is to stop waiting, to stop postponing, and to step fully into the present, because this moment, right now, is all there ever is. The past is a memory, the future an illusion. The only thing that is real is now. And when you fully embrace that, when you stop trying to force life into a certain shape, you discover something incredible. You were never separate from life in the first place. You were never an outsider looking in. You are life. You are not the wave struggling against the ocean. You are the ocean itself. But this is not something the mind can grasp through logic. It is something that must be felt, experienced directly, And the only way to experience it is to let go, to release the need for certainty, to embrace the unknown, to trust that whatever comes your way is exactly what you need for your own growth. Because life is not against you, it is not testing you or punishing you, it is simply moving, unfolding, changing. And you are part of that movement. The more you resist, the more you suffer. But the moment you trust, the moment you surrender, you realize that everything, every challenge, every difficulty, every moment of uncertainty has been leading you exactly where you need to be. The mind, in its endless pursuit of security, creates the illusion that life is something to be conquered, that challenges are obstacles to be removed. But if you look closely, you will see that life is not against you. It is not some external force trying to make your existence difficult. It simply is, flowing and shifting like the wind, like the tide, like the seasons. The problem is not that life is uncertain. You wish for things to remain the same, for stability to be a constant, for comfort to be unbroken. But imagine if a river refused to move, if it tried to hold itself still. It would no longer be a river, it would become stagnant. And stagnation is the very opposite of life. To live fully, you must move with life, not against it. You must learn to see challenges not as burdens, but as invitations, as doorways into deeper understanding. Because the truth is, everything you call a problem is only a problem because you have labeled it as such. Look at a seed buried beneath the soil. It does not see the darkness as a problem. It does not complain that it has been pushed underground, that it must struggle to break through the earth. Instead, it simply grows. It moves toward the light, not because it resists the darkness, but because its nature is to expand, to become what it is meant to be. And you too are meant to grow. But growth is not comfortable. It stretches you, it challenges you. It forces you to let go of old ways of being. Most people believe that happiness comes when all their problems are solved, when they finally reach a place where nothing is difficult. But if you examine this belief, you will see that it is a trap, because the very nature of existence is change. And if you are waiting for a time when there will be no difficulties, you are waiting for something that will never come. Life is not about eliminating challenges. It is about changing your relationship with them. It is about seeing that every moment, pleasant or unpleasant, is an opportunity to wake up, to become more conscious, to move beyond the limitations of the mind. Imagine you are standing in the ocean, facing the waves. If you resist them, if you try to stand firm against their force, you will be knocked down. But if you learn to move with them, to dive under them when necessary, to ride them when possible, then they become a source of joy rather than struggle. The waves do not change, but the moment you stop seeing those challenges as problems, the moment you accept them as part of the great unfolding, you become free. You move with life rather than against it. But how does one do this? How does one stop resisting, stop fighting, stop clinging to the need for certainty? The answer is deceptively simple: by being fully present. By dropping the constant mental chatter that says, "This should not be happening. This is not fair. I do not want this." Because in truth, those thoughts do not change reality. They only create suffering. Reality remains as it is, whether you argue with it or not. And so the wise person does not waste energy fighting against what already is. They accept it, they embrace it, and in that embrace, they find peace. Think of the way a musician plays. If they are too focused on playing perfectly, too caught up in getting every note exactly right, they will be tense, rigid, unable to truly enjoy the music. But if they let go, if they immerse themselves fully in the act of playing, if they trust the music to flow through them rather than trying to control every aspect of it, then something beautiful happens. They enter a state of effortless expression where every note is exactly as it should be. Not because they forced it, but because they surrendered to it. Life is no different. The more you try to control it, the more you struggle. But the moment you let go, the moment you trust in the natural unfolding of things, everything becomes effortless. Most people live as though they are waiting for something. They wait for the right job, the right relationship, the right circumstances before they allow themselves to be happy. But in doing so, they postpone life itself. Because life is not something that happens in the future, it is happening now. And the only thing that prevents you from experiencing it fully is the belief that something is missing. But what if nothing is missing? What if this moment, with all its imperfections, is already complete? What if the very challenges you are facing are not interruptions to your path, but the path itself? The key is to stop running, to stop trying to escape into some imagined future where everything will be perfect. Because perfection is not found in the absence of struggle, it is found in your ability to embrace struggle without resistance. The most alive people are not those who have avoided difficulties, but those who have met them with open hearts, who have seen them as opportunities rather than burdens. They do not ask, how can I get rid of this challenge, but rather, what can this challenge teach me? And in that shift of perspective, everything changes. You may believe that your happiness depends on achieving certain goals, on reaching some final destination. But if you examine this closely, you will see that every time you have achieved something, the mind has quickly moved on to the next thing. The satisfaction is fleeting, the sense of completion temporary. This is because the mind is always searching, always grasping, always trying to hold on to something that cannot be held. But if you let go of the need to arrive, if you see that you are already in the middle of the dance, then you begin to experience life differently. You stop trying to capture moments and instead allow yourself to be fully in them. And in that presence, in that openness, you find something far greater than fleeting happiness. Peace is not found in controlling life. It is found in accepting it. It is not something to be attained. It is something to be realized. It is already here, in this moment, waiting for you to notice it. And the only thing standing in the way is the belief that things should be different from what they are. But what if nothing needs to change for you to be free? What if the only thing that needs to change is the way you see? Because the truth is, you are not separate from life. You are not a being struggling to navigate an external world. You are part of the unfolding, part of the great movement of existence itself. And the moment you realize this, the moment you stop resisting, you will see that you were never lost, never in need of fixing. You were always exactly where you needed to be. There is a peculiar illusion that haunts the human mind, the idea that we are separate from life, that we are somehow outsiders looking in, struggling to navigate a world that is indifferent to us. But this is not true. You are not separate from life. You are life. Just as a wave is not separate from the ocean, you are not separate from the great unfolding of existence. The wave does not fight against the sea. It moves with it, effortlessly, with no resistance, no fear. It does not question its place, nor does it worry about where it will end up. And yet, as human beings, we spend much of our lives struggling against the current, convinced that we must fight, control, and force our way through life. But what if you could let go? What if, instead of trying to mold life into what you think it should be, you simply allowed it to be what it is? Imagine for a moment that you are standing in a river. If you try to grasp the water, to hold it in your hands, it slips through your fingers. But if you open your hands, if you let the water flow freely, then you can feel its coolness, its movement, its presence. Life is the same way. The more you try to control it, the more it escapes you. But the moment you surrender, the moment you trust in its natural flow, you begin to experience a profound sense And this does not mean that you do nothing. It does not mean you simply sit back and let life happen to you. No, it means you learn to dance with it, to move in harmony rather than opposition. A skilled dancer does not fight the rhythm of the music. They listen, they respond, they flow, and in doing so they become one with the dance. Life is the same way. When you resist, when you try to force things to happen according to your own rigid ideas, you create struggle. But when you move with life, when you trust in its unfolding, everything becomes effortless. But the mind does not like this idea. The mind wants control, certainty, guarantees. It wants to know exactly what will happen, how things will turn out. But life does not work that way. It is not a straight path. It is a winding road, full of unexpected turns, moments of joy, moments of sorrow, beauty and challenge. And if you are always trying to predict, always trying to manipulate the outcome, you miss the journey itself. You become so focused on the destination that you forget to enjoy the steps that bring you there. So what does it mean to truly embrace life? It means to stop seeing challenges as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities. It means to welcome the unknown rather than fear it. It means to recognize that every moment, no matter how difficult, is a part of your unfolding, a part of your becoming. Look at a sculptor carving a statue. Every strike of the chisel removes something that is no longer needed, and in doing so the true form begins to emerge. The same is true for you. The challenges you face, the struggles you endure, they are not punishments. They are the chisel shaping you, revealing who you truly are beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and illusion. But we tend to resist this process. We hold on to our old ways, our old stories, because they feel familiar. Even suffering can become comfortable when it is known. And yet, growth requires letting go. It requires stepping into the unknown, into the space where transformation can occur. Think of the caterpillar before it becomes a butterfly. It does not simply grow wings overnight, no. It must dissolve first, must surrender completely to the process of change. And this is what most people fear. Not the change itself, but the loss of what they were before. But what if what you are becoming is far greater than what you are leaving behind? This is why true freedom is not found in controlling life, but in trusting it. It is found in knowing that no matter what happens, you will be okay, because you are not just this body, not just this mind. You are part of something much greater, something vast and infinite. And when you stop fighting, when you stop clinging to illusions of control, you begin to see the beauty in everything. You begin to realize that even the so-called bad moments are part of the dance, part of the unfolding. There is nothing to fear, because there was never anything to hold on to in the first place. But how do you practice this? How do you move from fear to trust, from resistance to flow? You begin by being present, by paying attention to this moment, to the way the air feels on your skin, to the sound of the wind, to the rhythm of your breath. Because this is all there ever is. This moment. The past is a memory, the future a dream, but right now you are alive. Right now you are here. And if you can fully embrace that, if you can fully step into this moment without needing it to be different, you will find a peace that no external circumstance can shake. And this is not something you must achieve, it is something you already are. You do not need to become peaceful, you need only realize that peace is already within you. You do not need to chase happiness, you need only stop running from the present. Because everything you are searching for is already here, already within you. The only thing keeping you from seeing it is the belief that it is somewhere else. But once you see through this illusion, once you understand that you are not separate from life, but a part of its great unfolding, you become free. You no longer need to fight, to struggle, to grasp. You can simply be. And when you live this way, when you move through life with openness rather than fear, something remarkable happens. Challenges no longer feel like burdens. They feel like invitations. The unknown no longer feels like a threat. It feels like an adventure. You stop waiting for life to be perfect and start living fully, completely in each moment. And in doing so, you discover something incredible. That life was never something to be conquered, never something to be controlled. It was always meant to be experienced, to be embraced, to be lived.